Welcome to the ANEW Body Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogrammed Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. And Chantal Donnelly, physical therapist and author of Settled, How to Find Calm in a Stress-Inducing World. Here at City Club Los Angeles, we follow our guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Welcome back to the ANEW Body Insight Podcast. We are back for the second half of our interview with Reiki Master Yan Weng at City Club Los Angeles. Yan gave us some background about her harrowing time at Ground Zero and how she healed herself back to vitality. We are eager to learn more.
Thank you for being with us again, Yan.
Thank
When we
you.
last left off, you were telling us about the COVID pandemic and how you decided to move to teaching classes online. Was there a particular reason that you decided to do that? Just because we couldn't be together, we were distancing, or was there some other reason?
Yes, thank you so much for bringing me back today. I'm very glad to be here again. And yes, there is, during the COVID, as we know, there was all the lockdown and we weren't able to really go out or doing a lot of things that we wanted to do. And then around the same time, there was right before Christmas in 2020, I got a phone call from my mom and she fell in the bathtub and bruised her ribs and her face and all that. And she was very anxious, but she's also afraid to go to see the doctor because she didn't want to contract COVID-19. And at that time, I already have the tool to use Reiki to heal others remotely. And then I said, let me just do it because there's nothing to lose on that. So I told my mom, set a time. And then I'm going to call her on the phone. And then since she was available, so I said, okay, let's just do it now. So she was just holding the phone and I tell her to lay on a comfortable sofa or something when the phone putting on speaker. And then I just kind of guided her through. And then for certain meditation that is helpful for her at the beginning to kind of just let herself reduce all the heart pumping and all of that. And then after that, I would just activate the Reiki life force and then just let her receive it. And it's half an hour into it. When she came back, she was like, oh my gosh, I almost fell asleep. That's what she told me. And she was just feeling so calm and all that. And she was like, oh, whatever this is great. Actually, she already practiced Qigong, which is a good thing because years ago, she suffered from depression and anxiety, and I introduced her to Qigong practice. And because of that, she got much better. So she kind of knew about all the holistic practices because of me and all that. So she was very receptive to the Reiki healing when I suggested. And from there, and then the next day she actually called me and said, hey, when is my next session? So what I did was I did 1 week for her because every day she reduced her anxiety. So it took 1 week. And then she said, that's it. I don't need you anymore. I said, okay, that's good. And and because of that, I was like, now so many people around the world is suffering from this, the isolation and all that going around and people losing their loved ones. Why can't I just start on that? And that's when I founded Master and Grow Rich. Its mission is to empower others to tap into this holistic practice so they can not only just doing the healing, de-stress and all of that, but they have that access to the inner power that's always there, always existing, and always powerful. We just need to know how to access it. And that was kind of started on my mission during the COVID time.
I think it's amazing that you're able to do that remotely. And I think that that was actually one of the benefits or the good things that came out of COVID is that we had to tap into technology. And I can say that from a therapist point of view, as a psychologist, when COVID came about, we were all still in office. And so we had to scramble and we had to get all of our clients online. And it was a really amazing thing because everyone leaned into it. Everyone wanted to, continue to receive healing during this time. It was so important. And so I think it's amazing that you were able to do this and, heal your mom and then bring this out to the greater public through Master and Grow Rich. So tell us about that work. Tell us about the online Reiki clinic, because I think it's going to help so many people all over the world.
Oh, you mean the Reiki online that I do with the other Reiki masters?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Thank you for that. Yeah, I also acknowledge that you've done so much on, via your own wellness programs for so many of your clients and people who wanted that healing and wanted to express themselves so they don't get their undigested emotions within. So I also applaud you for that.
Well, thank you. It was actually, I think, really important for me personally, because it was something I felt I was able to do during that time. So I felt like I had use. I felt like I was doing something important. And I'm sure you probably feel the same way.
Yes. And then that is the reason. So further to some of my sharing before, according to the World Health Organization, there was an uptick of a massive 25% increase of the global prevalence of anxiety and depression during the COVID time worldwide. And then in particularly, suicidal rates had also increased around that time. And a particular impacted sector is the healthcare sector. All the staff, the nurses and doctors, they naturally wanted to help people, but at that time, they were afraid that they may be contracted with the disease or spreading that to their loved ones. And they're also afraid of it's just like so much overwhelming long hours of working, right? Because when you're so stretched thin, your immune system is coming down as well. And they don't want to take the break because they want to help more people. And also, they don't want to let their coworkers down. They want to really help to support. In addition, seeing so many patients pass in a very short period of time, it puts even more emotional burdens because they see this day in and day out. So when there was a Reiki online clinic that by Grace Healing Group opened up, and they said we needed Reiki masters to help out and to provide Reiki treatments to all the staff in the hospital, I just jumped in right away because before that I was like, how am I going to help so many of those healthcare workers? And then somehow when I thought of it, the opportunity came, and that's how I just jumped right in to have that. Yes.
Wow. That is great. I mean, that's definitely a population that needs as much help as they can get and doesn't have a whole lot of time to get the help. They don't have time to go for a massage or a therapy session even at this point, or at least during the pandemic, right? And so you were there and you were able to help them in a short amount of time. That's great. How long was a session usually with?
With us, usually we have 3 staff. They don't even have to be there, right? So it's a remote treatment. We just have to set the time. Like let's say from 10 to 11, it will be your time for this person. So there will be like lineup of like staff that wanted to receive the Reiki treatment. And they don't have to be physically, even remotely on a Zoom. They don't need to. They just have to set the time. And then at that time, 3 or 4 Reiki masters come together in the Zoom, and we will all do Reiki so we have like, let's line up the
3 at
staff.
once.
Wow.
No, 1 at once, but it's 3 at the same time. So there will
Wow.
be 3 or 4 Reiki masters doing the Reiki to that staff at the same time. So they receive, the activation with all the various Reiki masters at the same time.
Wow.
So that's how we did it. So we would do like 1, and then so it just go through the list of like what we need to do. Sometimes they will say, I need more energy because I'm doing a triathlon. And some would be like, oh, I am dealing with cancer right now and I need some support. Just various different reasons. Or sometimes they said, I'm just so stressed out on my life decision, something about the future. I'm confused, so I need my head to be clear. So it's just various requests. So we just kind of work with them. And usually it's not even us like trying to guess how we want to do it, because the Reiki life force comes, right? It's just intelligent. So we just have to have that intention, and then it will come. Because sometimes people say like, oh, my neck and shoulder hurt. But actually when the Reiki life force goes, that wasn't the spot that goes. Mm. Sometimes it goes to the crown of the head. Sometimes it goes to their stomach first, or abdomen, or whatever. And after that, it might go to their neck and shoulder. Or what. So yeah, wow. It's very interesting. And what I found...
Do they feel that? Do they say, I feel the energy in my head and then in my abdomen?
Sometimes they come back with we just got like, we have a Reiki master here too in the audience. Yes, so last week, during the last session, we actually received comments from the staff. They would tell us like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then she would tell us like what's going on, after we gave the Reiki treatment. Yeah, so it is they don't share all of that with us. However, many of them come back. Then we know if it's no use, then they won't be coming back, right? So because every day there is a lot of stress, challenges. And so there are times with different issues, but then we do see some of them come back. And we are continuing with the program. And for like a couple of times, we also go in person to the hospital. So the nurse so we line it up, whomever sign up, or the doctors or whatever, they would come in, and then it would be breaking into like 3 or 4 rooms, and each room would have 2 or 3 Reiki masters. And if they come in, we do have an hour. They go out and we do. So it's just like, yeah.
Back to back.
Yes.
Back to back to back.
Yes.
Rack them up.
Yeah. It's just mainly give them a way so for us to give back to them, for them do so much for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You have a lot of offerings on your website, and there's something called the Reiki First Degree Training Course. Can you explain to us what that involves?
Yes, thanks for asking that. I do have a number of programs, because everyone is so different, and working in the finance sector with busy professional, and some of them, they want to learn everything. So it's different types of personalities. The Reiki level 1 is mainly to give them that power for them to learn. And it involves with 5 sessions throughout a number of days. And I would provide them with step-to-step guidance so they don't feel overwhelmed. And I also break it down into like different pieces. And Reiki is just very easy to learn, because it's not like a skill-based one. It's mainly attunement and then very simple hand placement position. So I would help them to kind of go through this process, but in a systemic way, so they can get comfortable with it, and also the practice itself, right? Because sometimes we forget, or we are just so overwhelmed with so many different challenges and demands. This is one moment that we can kind of, sit down now and have a yummy time for myself, right? And that is what Reiki First Degree is.
I want to have a yummy time with myself.
Yeah, and just to have that. And every time, as I mentioned earlier, is that whatever they were experiencing with a lot of situations, agitations, or stresses, But after the class, on the 5 sessions that we had, they always feeling so just blessed. They just wanted to be there. They didn't want to leave, because they just so much coming down to a level that they know is their own inner power. Everything is here, right? We just have to know how to tap into it.
Do you ever find that your students might try too hard and that sort of blocks their ability to help with or generate the healing, let's say?
For themselves?
For someone else or for themselves. I know I've
Yeah.
done craniosacral classes, and if you try too hard with that type of modality, which is kind of similar to Reiki, different, but it has a parallel. If you try too hard, you will block whatever healing potential is there. Does that happen in Reiki too?
Maybe the way to look at it is more of how we are kind of looking at Reiki. It is not us actually to heal the other person. It's not me.
Right.
Whatever we do is that we are just activating or inviting the Reiki life force. If we have that without our ego, because we don't really know oh, wow, you have this issue or you have, not like that. It's just mainly the idea is to have the Reiki so it can work on you to gain that balance. So it has the intelligent way. If I myself get kind of away, like my ego or whatever, I know best, I can really heal others, but it's not that. It is mainly the Reiki life force that interact with our own healing system, and then it does its own work. We are just more like a facilitator. Yes. And that is the powerful aspect of Reiki healing.
I think that that's so beautiful. It's definitely something I'm interested in doing because, to add that to, psychology and dietetics, to be able to heal people in that way. I mean, you're not even necessarily healing, you're just channeling, essentially, would be amazing. But if somebody can't afford to take a training with you, what would you suggest for them to do if they were really interested in tapping into this healing force? What can they do?
I have some very simple, 1 minute kind of tips in my social media that I would provide to people interested in Reiki or some other relaxation techniques. And also I know that because of the rising inflation and cost of living going up, I do understand that affordability is a consideration that we cannot ignore depending on what people's life is going through. And that's the reason I created the various programs. And also the 15-minute online workshop is very affordable, and they get introduced. For the first half, I teach them some of the techniques so they can utilize it right away on the foundation. And then the second half is when I give them the healing session and with the short guided meditation. And also just get in touch with me on the newsletter, because from time to time I also offer a free session for people to come and do some of the hand placement, the Reiki hand placement. Just even 10 or 15 minutes is going to completely change our mindset from beginning to the end. And that's what I want. The mission is to share this to as many people as possible. And I know we are also busy with so many different directions, but that is my focus, is to share with as many people as possible so they can access into their own greatness.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Do you have something for our listeners right now that they might be able to do to, is there a meditation that they can do? Is there anything that, you can just give to them right now that will help them and guide them toward you?
You mean like a technique or two?
A technique, yeah.
Yes. So breathing is actually very important. I know that we have not talked about that. It is all part of us, right? Because the breathing is part of that prana that we talk about, that life force. whenever that happens, I tell my students just to exhale. Exhale is our friend. Because if we don't exhale all these things that is stuck, we don't have the capacity to take in more. So anytime when in doubt, if we are like dizzy or just so much going on, focus on our breath by exhaling. Either double exhale, triple exhale, at the point that you are now coming back to the normal way of breathing. Because that tells us sometimes we are so busy, we don't even know, wow, that breathing can be like husky or like very fast. That's the time we have to check in with ourselves. How am I breathing? Am I connecting my life force with my heart? And then so I can make better decisions. So it all comes back to the breathing aspect, and which is one part of the life force that is sustaining us all the time. We just have to tap into it.
And just to bring a little science into this, because we love to do that.
Okay,
we
sure.
know that when we inhale, our heart rate speeds up a little bit. And when we exhale, our heart rate slows down a little bit. So your breathing technique that you're talking about is taking advantage of that.
Yes.
And really slowing the heart rate down and settling the nervous system. So that's lovely.
Yes,
it's really
definitely.
Great. And we love talking about stress here, particularly stress management. Love it. Love it. And you have something called the Stress Buster Kit. Can you tell us about that?
Great question. Great observation. It is a 5-minute stress buster kit. I was thinking, because being in this finance world and also knowing so many professionals, entrepreneurs, and caregivers have been always like so much to do. They always wanted to help others. When is the time for them to really focus on themselves, right? So this 5-minute stress buster kit is mainly tailored to the busy people like me, in a way. Because
none of us are busy. Anybody busy out there in the audience? I don't know.
Yeah, then this is not for you, the 5-minute stress buster kit, because you won't get stressed, first of all. Yeah, and basically it's composed several very digestible modules, and each one is like 5 to 10 minutes long. It has like tapping, it has the breathing, it has some short guided meditation, and also the certain hand placements for the, as a starting point for Reiki healing, for the, like in advance or before the prep work for Reiki level 1. And it's so affordable. It's just because people, either they have money, but they have no time, or they have time and no money. So this kind of help the busy people to really tap into it at any time, because all the modules there, they just have to listen to it. Or sometimes they feel like they don't even want to do anything for themselves, like the hand placement. Then they can just lay on a comfortable sofa or wherever that is comfortable and listen to that module that has the done for you, which is a short guided meditation infused with the Reiki activation to de-stress, improve their sleep quality, and also tap into their own inner space, their own resources. So those are the few modules that are already in, like kind of concluded in there from the 20 years of experience that I have in terms of all that into that little nugget.
Like meditation sprinkled with magic. That's pretty cool.
You mentioned tapping. Do you mean like tapping, like bilateral tapping? Is that?
Tapping is the technique, the emotional freedom technique.
Yes.
That as part, I didn't even know that there is certain this name, because I've been doing Qigong for 20 years and I use that all the time, but I did not know it was called tapping on part of it, right? And it actually helps. Sometimes I tell the students before even placing hands like the Reiki or activate on the Reiki, tapping can be helpful to also tap out of, like, for example, you asked about like a technique. One of the techniques that I show to them a lot is to tapping around the thymus as you exhale, right? Or the breathing. just exhale it out, because a lot of time when we get stuck, most of the time we felt it around here, like the thymus and the heart area. And you just have to do it lightly and just tap onto it.
Beautiful. Well, we are running a little low on time, and we want to know if there's any questions from our audience members. Does anyone have anything that they would like to ask Yan here? And if you do want to, you can use the mic over here.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Yan, thank you so much. Your story has always been so powerful to me. I'm curious about the tapping, because I have a sciatic injury from years ago, and I started doing a little bit of tapping, like behind the back of my knee, and even actually in that area, and it goes away. But I wanted to know, I mean, I love that tapping. Is there specific tappings for certain area, for certain pains? I mean, you mentioned the heart area, but
if it's like integrating with Reiki, it's very powerful.
Okay.
Tapping as well, even by itself, is very powerful. And just have to, it depending on what area. So Reiki usually would, once you activate Reiki, you usually know where to do it as well. So that's where like the hand placement goes. Whenever it just leads you to wherever, like the student, when they mention about they were agitated, I tell them, select one pose, just listen to your own, and, together, and then they just like that, or they put onto their heart, or they put onto their belly, because somehow it just kind of very intuitive by the Reiki life force.
Yeah.
And tapping is the same thing. Sometimes on level 2, I teach them the whole series of where to tap and all that, because our body is, we talk about in yogic terms like the chakras, right? The energy center, and then Qigong is more like the meridians and the pathways. Our body is basically having, is like sacred geometry. The top part is like a triangle from our heart to our crown of the head. And then the bottom part is from our belly all the way to our first chakra, where the tailbone is. And every chakra has its own energy center. The energy is like all around, not just like one part, all around there. I use sound, tapping, Reiki, depending on the person too, or the group. I tailor to what they need. For example, if we have a lot of challenges around the lower back and also like tailbone area all around here, that's involving with our first chakra, right? And the second one. And then we also need to use the sound, like the lam sound and the vam sound. So whenever we do practice, I also tell them to chant the sound, because the lam, it helps to restore our first chakra balance, and the vam sound on the second. So all these things, so you place your hands on wherever. And also our largest joints and muscle is around the hip area. And that's where all the mental and emotional agonies are stored. That's why we need to tap. So whenever students say like, oh, I feel like so emotionally drained, I usually tell them to tap around the hip area, and also do Reiki all around the second area. And also color can be utilized as well. So around our second chakra, which is our sexual organs and also creativity, we usually use the orange. So you eat orange vegetables, orange fruits, that helps for your second chakra, for example. So sound, color, tapping, Reiki, and all that, right? Breathing technique, all that is like an integrative. So you utilize it, and then everything would be much better.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, I also use like, it's interesting because Reiki is so similar to life force. And I've been using this all along without even knowing it.
Oh, yes.
And,
it is.
but I like if I feel certain pains, I just channel it into my body. And then the pain subsides too. So, but thank you. I'm going to try the tapping.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that question. And we know that we can get in touch with you at masterandgrowrich.com. Is that your website?
Yes, it is correct. www.master with the letter N, growrich.com. So you can be all master your life with purpose and grow rich in all areas of your life. thank you so much for having me today.
Wonderful.
You. And thank you all for tuning in to ANEW Body Insight Podcast at City Club Los Angeles. We look forward to our next exciting interview and hope you will join us and evolve with us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Body Insight Podcast. Please remember, the content shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Body Insight Podcast tab. Follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.